Welcome, everybody. Welcome to yourstory.com and welcome to this retail roundtable where we will discuss the state of the retail industry during these hard times thanks to this pandemic. We're going to talk about how technology is transforming retail and how consumers are coming back to shopping. Let me tell the audience that India is the only place where consumption is on the rise, okay? And it's not going to stop for a long time. Here is why. You know, the median age is 27 and 60% of the population is less than 30 years old, pardon me. If you look at the sheer numbers, retail 15 years ago was only a $350 billion market, and now it's inching close to 1 trillion. If you don't believe me, and I have a great panel with me who can tell you and who can vouch for the numbers, and I have a wonderful panel. Let me introduce them. I have Suresh Jayaraman, who's the MD and CEO of Arvind Fashions and Arvind Lifestyle. He has been with Arvind since 2005. He's led them to a 10x growth. He's brought in brands such as Calvin Klein, Nautica, US Polo, and many more. And also there's Gap also, not to forget. I have with me S.Raghunandhan, the President, Commercial and Retail at Bhartiya Urban. He's had 30 years of experience pioneering Indian and international retail operations. In his previous role, he was at Prestige Group as CEO for 6 years. He was also in DHL Worldwide, Express and CapitaLand Singapore. Okay, and he's going to tell us how people are coming back to shopping too. Now, last but not least, I've got Dilip Kapur, who's the president and founder of iDesign, something where all the ladies can vouch for this. They will go to his shops and buy his bags. He's here with us. He's the founder of iDesign, which is a luxury leather brand, and it's been around for 40 years, and it's a $30 million business, and he's also taken the brand global. Hi, gentlemen. How are you? How's life treating you?
All right, going ahead.
Yep. Good.
All good, Vishal. You can be very good, during these times.
Yeah, tell me, what's happening with consumption, guys? Dilip, I want to start with the brands and then move on to Raghunandhan. What's happening, Dilip, Suresh, you want to start?
No, I think, see, if you purely look from the opening point of view, I think, today we are at a stage where probably 95% of our network is open. Which I think is quite different from probably from where we started. But the fact of the matter is, I think for a couple of months in the last 6 months, our revenues have been practically zero. So we are, I would say, is the highest, one of the highest impacted sector, because you can always, plan for a 10-20% drop in revenue, but you will never plan for a 100% drop in revenue. So I think, if I had to really look at the response, I would like to split that into two parts. One part, it's all about survival, because when you have a zero revenue, we need to survive. So it's all about numbers, and that there is only one number in that, which is cash. How do you sort of conserve cash, which means, how you're going to cut your expenses and how you're going to cut your the working capital, because these are the two cash items which you can tackle on a short term. So that is on one side. On the other side, of course, life is not going to continue like this. We should also prepare ourselves for the future. So I think identifying, what are the capabilities required, how the world is going to transform, how the consumer habits are going to change, and then gearing ourselves, to meet those changes in the most effective manner is what I would say in terms of the response package, what we sort of rolled out. So I would say that, the first part, in a way, it will still continue. I'm not saying it is over, but the intensity, that the survival as a focus, that intensity is now slightly lesser. It's now more about how do we get back and, get the business back on tracks and, take the best advantage of the changed situation is the real, focus today. So if you really look at from the numbers point of view, I think more or less, I think 50% of the demand has come back compared to the base. Suppose you compare your August sale to base August sales, we are more or less at 50%, and we believe that every month, there is going to be a 10-15% kind of an improvement, so that come Diwali, we are more or less at around 70-80%, or I would say more 70% of the base sales. So that's how we are looking at it. Of course, we have to take month by month and then recalibrate everything what you're doing based on that projection. But this is roughly the way we are looking at it.
Okay, just to talk about the scale of operations that Arvind operates in, right? Can you tell us the number of stores and the number of brands that you have to operate, just for the benefit of the audience?
See, we are totally operating 1,250 stores across all the brands. So in that 1,250 stores, I would say that, around 1,100 stores are open. So that's the reason why I said most of the operations are now sort of open. So then, of course, we operate across all the department stores and a lot of multi-brand stores. So from point of sale, if you really look at it, we are around 5,000 points of sale apart from stores. And if you take our innerwear business, we cater to almost 15,000 points of sale on the innerwear side. So I think in general, most of the operations of all the points of sales are open now. Okay,
Dilip, over to you. I mean, it's, Suresh made it very clear, nobody could have prepared for this. And, you look at a zero sale kind of a game here, when the pandemic started. How did your brand get affected? What were the changes that happened over the last 6 months?
I think the first was a shock, obviously. We were all in a shock. We're so used to the idea, as I think you brought it up really well. You said that in India, we are the growing story, everything happens. Yeah. And we just got so used to the idea that even if we were dummies, we still keep growing. And we're probably not the best retailers in the world, but we actually kept growing. Year on year on year on year, we had a growth of 10, 15, 20%. And to suddenly, have a shock and be thrown down on the ground and you're at zero and you don't know when you're going to come out was quite traumatic. I think it was emotionally traumatic. It was, you had to rethink all your strategies. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? How are you going to survive? I think Suresh pointed out very rightly that the first question was, how are we going to survive? How are our people going to survive? What do? We have about more than 2,000 people in our workshops making the bags. And then we have another 1,000, 1,500 people in the front end and offices. How are we going to survive with them? How are we going to keep them on? So I think it was, every day we kept worrying and every day we kept finding either a new hurdle or a new solution. So I think flexibility was very key. Being able to solve your problems day to day was very important. And now we're coming out of that and we're wondering where are we going now? I think Suresh is right. I mean, he's a luckier guy than I am. I have way too many stores in the airports, and the airports are really a disaster zone. So,
how many stores do you operate, Dilip?
We have 103 stores, our own exclusive stores, all high design stores, everything owned by the company, no franchise stores. So, but out of them, 32 were at airports, and I think airports took a massive hit, and they're still, not everything is opened up yet there. But coming out of it, I think Suresh is right. I think overall, around half of the revenues are coming back. We're all beginning to really look at things. What's the future? I think one thing that I would like to emphasize is that there were changes happening in retail prior to this. And this thing has maybe given us the time, and also the crisis has made us re-look at those. And those changes are going to be faster and more important than we ever thought they were going to be. And they're not as smooth. The store itself is changing in what it represents. I think it represents more and more a showroom. Already around 30% of my sale in a store is actually happening from home deliveries and omni. Where is that going? We don't know. But clearly, the nature of business itself is going to change a lot.
How much was it before the COVID, this omni or e-commerce kind of approach?
I think there was no home delivery. Home delivery would only be our e-commerce website. So that's all new for us at least. Omni was just beginning. We were around 5%, and now we're talking about 30, 35% of our business.
Significant jump.
It's a huge jump, yes.
Raghu, going to you, right? I mean, you'd agree with this gentleman, this whole concept of retail has changed. Retail has always been resilient. There have been changes. We had a crisis in 9-10 when store expansion, people expanded and dropped it back again. There's some correction there. But retail always comes back because people in the end have to go out. People are social animals. Do you see brands coming and signing up at malls and in properties? And also give a fair overview on what Bhartiya is doing.
Okay, it's a déjà vu here, because the first mall I opened was to have been in 2008, and then we had the Lehman Brothers crash, the big global crisis.
Absolutely.
And we postponed the whole thing by 6 months, and then we opened mid 2009. That was a mall in Whitefield, Prestige. Okay, so
next to Shantiniketan, is it?
No. It used to be called Forum Value Mall. It's not called
Forum Valley Mall. Yes.
Yeah. So that was the first mall I opened, and we pushed it back by 6 months because of this. So, cut to 2020, we were getting ready to launch the Bhartiya City Center by mid 2020. Again, back, but hopefully not too long. We're looking at early 2021. Okay, so that's just on the opening. But I think a couple of things have happened. I'll just take a step back and talk about the industry first, then I'll come specifically.
Yeah,
but much like what Dilip and Suresh said, I think the mall business also went into a shock because they've never experienced this, right? You've got this huge asset which is built and expensive to maintain, and revenues dry up. And you can't expect revenues from people who occupy because they have no revenues. Yeah. You have overheads, you have to maintain it. So the first 3 months of the pandemic really went when, fortunately I didn't have a mall ready, but worked closely with our board, with our association in assisting other developers come to terms with what to do, talking to retailers, talking to mall developers. So we tried to put things in perspective. Okay. But I think we spent a lot of time, and I think it was useful, especially I think in April, the whole of May, in lobbying with the government. We actually worked out, I think, what are excellent standard operating procedures for malls, how to deal with this whole COVID crisis, how to take care of safety, security, put in place a lot of measures, sanitation, cleanliness, health, etc. And the government, the Home Ministry actually accepted. It was only after that that the malls were allowed to open in the first week of June, June 8th. So I think we did a lot of work there. The work hasn't stopped because still cinema and entertainment centers are not allowed to open. So that's on the industry. How has the industry responded? Pretty much like retail, because this has never happened to them before. So, but I think they're coming to terms with it. And I think the broad consensus is things will improve towards the end of this year and definitely next year onwards. But everybody has to have the patience and the financial resources to sort of slug it out during this period. It's a very tough period. I mean, there are no revenues for anybody. Okay, so that's tough. So coming to Bhartiya City, it's actually funny because 2 years back, when I got involved with this project, we said, let's position this center very differently. In fact, I didn't even want to call it a mall. Okay, because I said, this is not a mall. The whole pitch was, can we build India's first true experiential shopping center? Okay, and I think that I feel vindicated because I think that positioning and that stand has been vindicated now because of what's happened.
Absolutely.
Okay, perhaps it will morph into something slightly different from what we thought of 2 years ago. But I think the core of it is, if customers come back, you have to give a very different experience from the type that they were used to earlier. Whether it's integrated selling, whether it's bringing in the online players, which we are trying to do, whether it's helping retailers do omni-channel, I think it's very, very different. It's completely experiential. Fortunately for us, I think our mix, 95% will be intact. In 5%, there will be some churn. There will be some retailers who can't financially afford to expand and open new stores. So that 5% I'll have to change. But I think the core is staying with us, and that's good. So I think we'll talk about it more, and I want to hear from both Suresh and Dilip, because for me, the core is experiential retail.
I want to talk about that.
I think we can survive.
Yeah. You know, Suresh, Dilip, coming over to you, right? As we know, retail's changed forever. He's talking about experiences. And Suresh, perhaps you've been following my stories. I've been talking about how technology can impact malls. You know, how once I've visited the store knows me as this individual. and it can always recognize what I want, right? Perhaps this COVID time has taken us in that journey, but people think technology is expensive. Have you thought through these experiential technologies at this point of time? Is it going to come through because of COVID?
No, I think, see, earlier, there was a choice or there is an option. I think today, if you really look at it, I think there is no choice.
You have to go in that direction.
Yeah. So Dilip was mentioning that, 30% of the sales is generated omni. I think that's the case. For example, the kind of footfalls we are now getting in malls, but for omni, we would have been in deep trouble. So I think, I think, in these experiences, I would put it into 2-3 parts. I think step number 1 is to do everything by which, you can improve your sales. So
absolutely,
what we are doing is how do you digitally generate orders and then use our stores as a hyper-local
fulfillment center. Yeah.
So that, I think, is a step number 1. And in that process, I think we have also integrated, it's not our own e-commerce. We have also integrated with other e-commerce players like, like a Myntra, Flipkart, and Amazon, so that any of these customers also get an access to our store inventory. So in a way that we have made the inventory global, so it's visible to everyone. That, I think, is I would say the tangible part of getting sales. The other part is we are also enabling, in a way, empowering our store staff to engage with the customers. Either it could be a social media engagement where we are providing them the opportunity to send they can actually, that is the part, which you mentioned that, based on the knowledge of the customer, we push the recommendation of the customer to the store staff, engage with them in conversational commerce, so that, and try to give the store experience, as much as possible through our own staff. So it could be even, delivering the product using our store staff at the house, so that the customer actually can interact with the store staff, be a bit more knowledgeable about the product than a courier boy, coming and delivering your product. So these are the kind of things, which we are doing. See, I think we have effectively done what I call as a one view of inventory, because we have now connected all the inventory to be visible to the customer as one view. Being a predominantly a brick and mortar retailer, getting a one view of customer is that much more difficult. Because customer journeys are in different places, and we don't have any access to the online journey, which is the large part of the journey. But we are trying to capture as much as possible the customer journey and see that whether with the limited knowledge we have about the customer, whether we can create that one view of the customer and then try to communicate with the customer on a one-on-one basis. If Vishal knows, we know that Vishal likes this.
Yeah.
We communicate with Vishal only from what you like, rather than bombarding you with many other messages which may not you may not really need, so that you increase the chance of conversion. So these are the things which, but it's a little bit more difficult compared to sort of viewing the inventory as one global inventory vis-a-vis getting a complete knowledge of the customer. But within the limitation, I think we are trying to gather as much data about the customer as possible and talk to them on a one-on-one basis.
Have you invested in this already, this entire one view of the customer? Or is it several pieces that today you're trying to say, okay, we've got the mall piece?
We had one inherent advantage because as a company, we had invested in a technology company called Arvind Internet.
Yes.
So some of the things come homegrown, and we were, I would say, few steps ahead even before COVID, with some of these initiatives. But also, I think during this period, we must have tied up with at least 20 odd startups, in different spaces. Someone could be for logistics, someone could be for conversational commerce, someone could be for recommendation engine. So it's a combination of, I would say, homegrown with leveraging on a good startup ecosystem.
Okay, I want to quickly ask you this question. Say tomorrow I went to a Bhartiya city center once, brought something from Arvind, say US Polo is something that I shop regularly. And after that, every time I pass through or drive through Bhartiya city, can I get recommendations from Arvind saying that, okay, you bought this a couple of months ago or even 20 days ago. We want to send you a new set of styles that we have. If I've signed up, of course, and then you push it to either direct commerce channel or through your aggregators. Is it possible, or is it still a long way away?
No, that is possible even before, Vishal, nothing to do with this COVID. So if your Bluetooth is on, I think that is something which is possible. But what we realize is, I think, sometimes we also get carried away with technology.
Correct. We should not be. Yes.
There could be a laundry list of things, which you can do, which possibly we can talk in a seminar or a webinar like this. But I think we should be very careful to pick and choose, because if you do some 20 things and all the 20
fail,
some may give some incremental thing. It's better to do some 3 or 4 things right, rather than doing things. But we have always found this pushing, not so very effective, because today I think an email or a different kind of notification which is very personalized is much more engaging.
Very well said.
One bombarding with a common SMS, 40% off.
Very well said.
Which used to be the case, before.
Very well said. So it's more customized. So you'll send a newsletter over.
Yeah,
which is well designed.
We have startups, which offer customization to the tune of almost 230 variables. They analyze the customer on 230 to 50 variables.
Very nice. Dilip, would you want to have this kind of scenario where you said 35% is now omni-channel? What are your experiences in terms of mall plus D2C plus e-commerce?
I start with a very simple thing.
Yes, please.
Yves Carcel, the president of Louis Vuitton, once advised me. And I asked him, where should I be? Where should I advertise? And his answer was very simple. He says, you should be where your customer is. There's nothing complicated about it. And I think following up on that, well, the customer is not in the mall so much anymore.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? That was being one. But the key, and I think Suresh also hit on it, there is a lot of technology available and some are basics. I think he is right. I mean, yes, all our inventory is now visible across our own website, across our own, every single store is visible on Flipkart or whatever, everything is visible to everybody. So that's a simple thing. And I think there's no compromise on that. And we're all going to be doing that. But there's a lot of other stuff which I think is homegrown solutions to problems that one faces every day. And the key thing there is, how do you communicate to your person? How do you communicate to your consumer?
Yeah.
And the more you communicate, the better off you are, obviously. And I think what we found is there are a lot of different things. I mean, like our store people are very, very good with things like WhatsApp groups.
Correct.
And so it's a very personalized thing. I'll make a WhatsApp group of my 20 best customers.
Nice.
That's one. That's at the lowest level, and that starts there and is very effective. The next stage is your loyalty members. They're very, very key to our survival during this time. I think any brand that did not build on its loyalty is really suffering now, because our loyalty, and we've stayed in touch with them. We've given them free, come, we'll do it. The easiest way to get somebody is we're going to do a free polish and renovate your bag for you. And the person comes over, and otherwise they never show up. So I think being in touch with the consumer is very important. Being your platinum members is very important. I call them platinum because they're platinum club members of ours. They're loyalty members. People who already bought, people who love you, people who already know you. Being in contact with them is key. Now, I would agree with Suresh on the statement he made. He says there are many ways to approach a larger group of people, and we have tried. We've tried through other loyalty programs. We've tried through others, through mall people. Their effectiveness is far, far lower. We have gone out there. We have contacted them. It's lower. I think so. First, you need to stick to, how do you know the consumer? Where is he? Communicate to him as much as you can. Let him know what you have special, what's new, what's special, and that they end up trusting you. If you bring them in and then you give them a load of nothing, well, they're going to show up next time.
It's interesting, right? Suresh, Raghu, I'll come back to you in a couple of seconds. I quickly want to talk about how how brands operate in terms of such a crisis. Designs keep changing every 3 months, right? In Dilip's case, maybe a design changes in 8 months. Correct me if I'm
Every
wrong.
month.
Every month. Wow, fascinating. That's great. No wonder the
We
ladies
have
keep
new
coming back.
designs every month.
That's what I want to know. Suresh, how do you manage this in the pandemic? You are used to quick design cycles, right? This is the first time that people are scared to come and buy stuff, So how do you, like Dilip said, you have to communicate to your loyal customers because they keep coming back somehow and keep your revenues growing, So I, for one, went back to a US Polo store in June and bought something for a engagement or something that happened at the time. So it requires staff training. I mean, I was a walk-in because I'm a loyalist to the brand, but how do you bring people in? Because the store guys are complaining that it looks empty the whole day. They're just waiting and looking at the inventory and nothing moves. How do you manage that?
I don't know. That's what I was telling Vishal, that, because of this, digitally sort of generated sales for the stores, we could at least generate, 50% of, suppose we had left malls,
Yes.
all stores, without any digitally enabled sales support, probably we'll end up with 25 to 30% of sales. So that 25 to 30% of the sales, we were able to push it up to 50 to 60% purely because we've been able to generate certain sales through digital means.
Amazing.
So that I think is one. And second is coming to this change. As such, not because of COVID, but even otherwise, the fashion industry was moving more and more towards faster turnaround and less, little bit, more season agnostic kind of buying. Because this, I would say in a way, someone who is not actually from this industry, I always used to wonder, frankly, before coming into the industry, I never knew that there are autumn, winter and spring, summer. So I always used to wonder why all these seasons. I think we are more and more transforming to that, because if you really look at it, it doesn't make any sense. You start looking at the trends 1.5 years back and then, generate something, buy something 8 months in advance and then, stock it up and then sell. The cash to cash cycle is one of the worst in this industry compared to any other.
Yeah. Right.
So I think these things, is fine when there is less competition and,
yeah, it's brutal.
Today's world, I don't think it's going to make any sense. I think more and more, I think we are now transforming into how to do quick turnarounds in terms of, there are some parts of the business we have even changed toward to producing once in 2 months and nothing to do with the season. Of course, we have to keep in mind, for Diwali, this kind of product is required. For winter, this kind of product is required. We can't be completely agnostic. So I think today, if you really look at it, Vishal, I think the basics or essentials are the ones which are selling quite well. I think it's important that we anticipate that demand and are able to produce that quite quickly and then feed the market. So it's not that we have to create some new designs or a new fashion, new trend at this stage. But parallelly, what we are also working on is because technology, not on the consumer side, but also we need to look at a technology on flexible manufacturing. For example, how do I think there are now quality printed products available where the shirt, for example, I am wearing need not come as a woven product. It can come as a printed product, which means my cycle time can come down from 3 months to 1 month. So you have to keep tracking the demand because that is also technology. How do you keep tracking the demand, tracking the trend, and then quickly turning around something and giving it? I may produce only 1,000 pieces of this, not make the 5,000 pieces, because the earlier thought process is larger the quantity, cheaper the price.
Yeah.
So you produce more and keep it. But now the thought process should be you look at the end-to-end cost and say that I produce 500, but I'm not going to discount and sell half the quantity. So as long as I sell 80% at full price, and so then I don't mind paying some maybe 20% upcharge or a 15% upcharge in the beginning, then looking for a lowest cost product. So I think these are the changes which actually started happening even before COVID. I think it will get much more accelerated. I mean, there will not be any choice post COVID.
I think Dilip, you'd agree with that too.
I think, different brands are different. And I would say that, I think the way we look at it is some things are similar, but there's very key difference. I think largely Arvind represents other brands, whereas we create
your
our own
brand. Yeah, your own brand.
and
Yes.
so
Which means taking care of manufacturing also yourself.
No, I think I make a correction. While the names are international, we do everything from design to sourcing.
Yeah.
So no,
you're doing your own brand too,
nothing
right?
international on design and sourcing. Other than one or two brands like Tommy Hilfiger or a Calvin Klein.
Or Gap, maybe.
Gap we source locally, although the designs part of it come international.
Wow, interesting.
Part of it we do it ourselves. Of course, following all the design philosophies of those brands, but we are an end-to-end player and not sourcing kind of an organization.
Okay, fine. Dilip, so in your case also, so there's a lot of similarity here in the manufacturing side also then, where, go on Dilip, you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that in a way, we're going against the grain of the industry because one of the key things to our brand has always been that it's handcrafted. So, where we used to always produce always on lines, now we're actually moving on the opposite direction so that we can talk more about our craftsmen. We can have it on social media, the guys who produce your product. So you can see it, you can see how it's produced. I think these values of slow production, handcraftedness, these, even though the product ends up costing more, are key to certain brands. So to high design, that's key, and therefore we're going against the grain there. That's all I meant. I think the brand itself dictates certain things. And that's why it made it easier for me to have newness every month.
No, it's a good thing also, right? Because today's consumer wants that newness. They want fast change, right? And so therefore newer items all the time, right? That they can come experience.
Yeah, you have a core, which is, as Suresh said, the basics, what we call a core collection. But every month we ensure that there's something new going in the store. And those, productions are produced, they don't have to be produced in large numbers anymore because it's more and more handcrafted.
If that is a change that's happening, then Raghu, the mall guys should also, make sure that it's customized, it's experiential, like you mentioned earlier, right? I mean, they're coming out and saying smaller quantities of several items, premiumness. Is the Indian consumer ready for that?
Okay. First, let me quickly just add on to what you heard from Suresh and Dilip. First of all, my statement is, I'm fortunate I run a far more simple, uncomplicated business. I mean, this is scary. Okay? I mean, we just have one big asset which we need to sweat and leverage. That's all. Okay. But how are we looking at technology first? And then I'll address the second part.
Yes, please.
Very simply, anything that can enhance customer experience. So to give you a couple of concrete examples, we have mapped out every single point of interaction that a consumer may have from the time he or she even enters the center till they exit. Okay, so it's much like retail. You can spend an hour or even an hour and a half in a large store browsing, buying. But if you spend more than 10 minutes in the cash till, you get so irritated and you leave. It's the same thing in a center. You'll spend 3 hours, you watch a movie, you go, you have a meal, shop, whatever. But if you're piled up in car parking, you get so irritated, you say, I'm never coming back to this stupid mall. It's like that. So we've identified. So how easy is it to enter? Can you find car parking easily? Is a security guy who screens you, is he knowledgeable if you even ask some basic questions? When 90% of the security guys today in any mall in India have no clue.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're addressing those kind of issues.
Very basic.
We're taking this whole customer service business very seriously. So we're going to have trained customer service people at every level in the center, assisting customers who want assistance. We don't want to be intrusive, but if you want help, we're there to help. Then how do you navigate your way? How do you find it easy to shop? Those are all some basic building blocks we are putting in place. From a mall side, if I address the second part of your question, how are we working with retailers to enhance this experience? In 2 or 3 ways. One, I think we're making a huge effort in bringing in a whole lot of online players who normally would not be present in an offline sense. We're bringing.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
a whole lot of players who are purely online. We're offering them a chance to be part of an offline infrastructure that we're creating only for online players. Okay, and I think that could be a real game changer because, and you know, a lot of the infrastructure will be provided by us. Okay, we are working actively with retailers to try and figure out what information they want, what we can give, and what we should get, just to enhance the experience. Okay, we are trying to leverage technology in different ways. I mean, we're internally debating an app. See, this app, there are so many apps floating around. Internationally, apps work extremely well with shopping centers. They work really well. Somehow in India, they haven't worked well. So we're just trying to figure out, should we launch with an app? Can we do it later once we've built a database, once we track customer behavior, we interact more closely with retailers? What do we do? Then how do we communicate with the consumers, end consumers, about what, say, Arvind or High Design or any other brand want to offer them? How do we go? So I think we've pretty much taken a call. We'll work actively with retailers. We'll largely rely on social media. I don't think you'll see us in mass media at all. Very minimal. Because I think it's a waste of time and it's a waste of money.
That's music to my ears. Thank you very
because
much.
We want, because, you know, I'll end up spending a huge amount of money. For what? I mean, to get 3 days crowd and then everybody disappears. So it doesn't make sense. Because also remember, in this new world, at least for the next, I don't know, a year, I'm guessing, there are not going to be large public events. There are no performances. There's nothing. Okay. Our entire launch platform had to be changed because we were planning something big. So all that now goes out of the window. Can we instead offer more personalized experiences to bring in people, more relevant offers to bring in people? So that's how we're looking. Fairly simplistic view, but I think we want to keep it very simple.
Okay. Before I move any further, Raghu, I just got a message from the engineering team that you got to look towards your left because it looks as if you're looking somewhere else.
Sorry. Okay.
so sorry about that, but that's great. So while you're looking at yourself, I mean, this is like a new time for you to think of life like a startup. I know Suresh is right. They had Arvind Internet, which experiments a lot with a lot of things, and they've understood how the customer journey begins and ends. Dilip, you know, I see a lot of these young brands popping up on Amazon, on Flipkart, you know, and I don't know whether the world of retail today is all about digital marketing. Suresh can also butt in there. You know, what's happening is these challenger brands are coming up. And I look at iDesign as very much like a challenger brand. You went and did something that it's phenomenal, right? Your growth of 20x over the last 10 years. You know, you did it on physical stores. But now everybody that I talk to, people who are 30 and younger who started brands, they just want to focus on their website and selling on Amazon. I mean, and they focus on digital marketing. They have no spends in the physical world other than Google, Facebook, Instagram, working with a few influencers, you know, doing keyword marketing. That itself seems like a science. And they've done quite well. They've captured a new audience, an audience that's almost promiscuous to say, because they're changing brands every now and then. There's multi-experimentation happening with a brand. In that world, right, how does iDesign then keep itself relevant? Or have you already started D2C, but younger people can come to your website and order? Is that something that you want to bet on?
Well, I mean, you keep renovating yourself constantly. I think, for example, the only major investment we've done is we've put a brand new website now.
Okay. Where I can buy from the website directly.
Yeah. So, I mean, we always had that, but we wanted a lot of newness and a lot of new things in there. However, I would still point out, and it's not that we're not, for example, when we go to another country, for example, we're in the United States, you know, we go to Indonesia, or Australia. The first thing we do is we go on the easiest way is e-commerce.
Correct.
Build a brand on e-commerce. It doesn't cost you much. You don't have to build a store. Don't have to do anything.
So you can ship from India directly.
Yeah.
If you want it. Yeah. Okay.
Well, even if you don't have to make a store. I think that's the big thing. However, there are two caveats here, I think, to building a brand. If that's what you're after. If sales is what you're after, I think e-commerce is great. But if you're after building a brand, two things. One, your physical store is key. When when we built this store on Sarajevo, on the right on the main street, right on the corner, double-story, beautiful old building, you know, that did more for building the brand and the experience. Whereas Amazon then lives off the work I've done there.
Yeah.
I built a brand there, which then I have to milk it on Amazon then. Amazon isn't the greatest place to build a brand.
I agree. I've been warning brands then.
You use your brand there. If digitally, when you want to build a brand, it's your website. It's your own site. I don't think, I mean, and I'm very, very active, and I hope nobody kills me after this from, but there, and we try and they try and everything, but as you said, it's a very promiscuous atmosphere. It's not the great place to build a brand. Brands take a long time. Again, Yves Cassel told me that only the Americans think you can build a brand in 15 years. He says it took them 150 years to build Louis Vuitton. So I don't think you build a brand as such, just like that on e-commerce platforms. I think social media is key. Sure, digitally, social media is key. Your own website is key. But the store, I don't think Raghu is going anywhere. His mall is going to survive because that's how I'll build my brand, is on his malls.
I agree with you. So what does the young Indian want then? What does the young Indian woman or male want going? I mean, I remember, we progressed, right? I mean, based on your income levels, we progressed. But now I don't know whether it's easy availability of credit or, that people are experimenting, and there are a lot of these young brands that offer quality. And the other thing is quality. How do you determine quality? Somebody says, I'm premium, but I cost less. I don't know what the younger one's looking at. I mean, it's a lot of confusion for me. I look at it every day, and people spend loads of money. Maybe their parents have gotten rich. I don't know. But how do you see India's consumption change in different tiers?
You're asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you, Dilip.
Okay. So I think what's the brand's responsibility? Finally, people buy the brand.
Correct.
Often is not even key what the style is. They will believe you. Because part of your responsibility is, as a brand, is to deliver quality, deliver a promise that you will live with, and that you make them look better or improve their position in life. That's the job of a brand. I mean, if I don't deliver that, I'm failing, number one. And if I do deliver that, the actual style itself isn't really that key.
Okay, great point. So all that, keeping in mind, the basic thing is making sure the brand communication is right, and people will come back to you.
That's what is key.
Okay. Suresh, what about you? I mean, these changes about D2C versus e-commerce, would you like to build things on your own website versus physical stores? What's happening? What does the young Indian want?
No, I think, Vishal, we can say e-commerce store as more as a channel. I think
Correct. Well said.
Very, very clearly coming out is, I think D2C is becoming much more important. Because earlier always there used to be an intermediary. But sort of, linking directly with the customer in whichever form, whether it is a store, whether it is, even if you're present in, say, a department store, how in a way, you're able to interact directly with the customers, which technology in the hands of our store staff will allow you to do, is now becoming extremely important. What is, I think, more important is how I'm going to interact with the consumer. And I think Dilip made a point, what he sort of learned from Louis Vuitton, that wherever customer is, you should be present. I think that's a very, very simple principle. If you really look at it, a few years back when customers were there in television, I think everyone was advertising in television. Today, I think consumers are in mobile. So I think you should be present. So there, to be present, Amazon or Flipkart or this one is more towards using them as a channel, and then in a way performance marketing, where you're linking sales to visibility is the role they play. But if you have to really build a brand, it has to be your presence in your own website, the way you are presenting yourself as a brand in the website, and the way you are presenting yourself in the social media channels, where the consumers are.
Okay,
So that way, I think we need to very clearly differentiate the role,
yeah.
the platforms and the channels for building brands.
Okay, is digital marketing the new real estate and very expensive real estate at that, or is that a clever way of doing this? Because a lot of brands spend tons of money on digital marketing, and then they come back to me and say, there was no ROI, I just made Google, Facebook rich, and an influencer marketing guy rich. So what does that mean to you, Suresh?
No, quite often I think, people make a mistake that, digital marketing is cheap. Which is not the case. I think you have to be extremely careful. So you should have the right mix of metrics, because what really happens is quite often you get fooled by the number of impressions your ad is generated, and sometimes it crosses the population of India actually. So that's a reality. So I think you should be very careful, and I think. See, what also happens, Vishal, fact of the matter is 90%, all of us who are sort of legacy organizations primarily started in brick and mortar space. 90% of our resources are actually tied up to brick and mortar space.
Correct.
Only 10% of our resources are slowly building into digital, part of the company. Whereas if you take a startup, they are actually 100% digital and 0%. So if you have to be really get the best out of digital, I think we need to build the right, talent and capability there. Otherwise, doing what we are doing today, like, trying to sort of use this, the existing resource, make them do as a part-time on digital, is where I think many of the brick and mortar companies are failing. We need to really recognize that definitely, that it's a completely different animal. And we need a different, of course, our first attempt should be to develop our existing resource to learn the new skills. If that is not happening, but build a different, skill set for handling digital marketing. If you do that, then of course you can, use it effectively. Otherwise, you'll get, fooled with the number of impressions.
Yeah, not just impressions, and the number of charlatans out there who claim to be digital marketing experts is phenomenal. Raghu, for the first time, I think a mall has to do digital marketing, right? And I want to hear about that. How different will that be? That's a very different space. To talk about your team and how you're going to do it for Bhartiya City, because these brands are going to be part of Bhartiya City to obviously build an experience, make sure that then their shoppers go into other experiences, starting from that brand store. In your case, then how would you do digital marketing?
Okay, in 2 or 3 different ways. One is we relook at marketing completely. Okay, we start with a white sheet of paper. We're not going to do marketing the way it's been done before, because it won't last, it won't work, it's too expensive and it'll fail. Okay, so the whole idea was, when we sat with the team, we said, how do we create? So one major initiative we've taken, which is partly experiential, partly brick and mortar, but a lot digital, is how do we enhance this whole entertainment quotient in a mall? And how do we communicate that? So that's one major sort of plank on which we're going to, really communicate and talk to our consumers about. Then I think we're doing a lot of analysis of consumer behavior. For me, just going back a little bit earlier, it's the consumption story. I think the consumption story is what matters in this country, and specifically for malls and retailers. And I think we've only scratched the surface. A decent trading mall in India today, a better one, let's say in Bangalore where we are, or any other city, it's today a good mall is considered to be something that trades at 2,000 rupees a square foot a month. I mean, I think it's extremely low. Okay, because if you have the right target customer with the right target merchandise and the right offering, you should be doing at least 3,000, if not 4,000 rupees. Now, the challenge is, how do you digitally communicate this and bring in a set of consumers who otherwise would not come? Okay. And today, because post-COVID, we're looking at how do we reach every single consumer. So again, one of the problems I think I'm seeing in other malls, and I don't want to be critical of any mall because each one has its own challenges and problems, is I think they're missing the point of, they're not bringing back the joy in shopping. They're only worried about sanitization, safety, security. By the time you go through a tunnel and you sanitize your hands and the security guard checks you, then you go to every store and you're checked again. and you want to
Yeah.
go home.
Absolutely. That kills the experience.
It kills the experience. Then how do I still have all those controls but communicate the joy of shopping? Because end of the day, a consumer comes, he or she comes to enjoy, to have fun, to spend time with the family, to shop, to see a movie, to have a meal.
Yeah. To forget what's happening out there. Yeah.
Yeah. And then here you're reinforcing everything. And then you have these big posters, you're not allowed without a mask. You go to a store, you sanitize your hands, there are only 5 people allowed, you're waiting in a queue. Then you go to the next store, the same thing happens. By the time you reach the third store, you're ready to go home. Okay? So that's the reality. And I think part of the problems that we are facing today in this business is because people have forgotten about the joy of shopping. So our marketing challenge is to communicate and bring back the joy of shopping. And I'm doing it digitally because there's no other way to do it. There's no other way to do it. I can't.
I think people are going to come back, Raghu, because I go back now in Bangalore, and there are people who are flocking to these small coffee shops anyway, right? So I think people are going to come back to malls in a big way too. But like you said, how do you manage this? Say 10,000 people come into the mall per day, right? How do you make sure that hygiene is important? Yes, but how do you make sure that you subtly not communicate the fact that you're coming into this zone? And you should make sure that you're careful also, because they don't want to be reminded of that. But it's a very subtle messaging that you got to do.
Yes, and that's exactly the marketing challenge for us. And we're actually working on that. But like I said, we are very clear. We will communicate directly to consumers through the right digital media. Largely, it's going to be user social media that we're looking at. We will do it through the press, through interviews, through various forms of communication. But all I'm saying is I'm pretty much ruling out mass media.
Okay. Raghu, I'm going to ask you another tough question, which Suresh and Dilip will appreciate. Okay, you build their brand, they have their brand stores, you give them great experience, and then their customers move digital. Is there a case where you got to do a revenue share with these guys because you led them towards the digital channel after coming into the brand store?
You're talking to the two toughest negotiators in the business here. Okay, so don't give them more ideas. Okay, but
they're the nicest.
Oh, yeah. But no. Listen, every deal today is on revenue share. I can't think of a single deal which is not on revenue share. Progressively, that will increase. That's going to be the nature of the game. But you know what? It's more than revenue share. I mean, a revenue share of 100 is something, but a revenue share of 1,000 is a lot more. So how do you move that 100 up to 1,000 is the challenge. And I think we will work extremely actively with brands to move this needle up, because this revenue share thing is it's like a hygiene factor. Without that, there is no business. There is no business model without that. The thing is, how do we work with brands and partners to bring in this omni-channel retail and capture all the elements in that one store or one brand experience in the center? I think that's the trick, and that's what we are working towards.
No, that's Suresh. That's. I want to ask you this because in the startup world, now that I've been with your story long enough, I'm drowning in technology. So I'll tell you this. So people talk about the open API world, right, where multiple parties can plug in their technologies.
Yeah.
And the startup manages the data around this, right? Do you think that's an important piece of technology that should move towards some form of collaboration, where Raghu will get to know, they already knew what's happening per store, but now bring in the customer piece also, and then offer a better customer experience? Is that possible?
No, I think, going forward, collaboration is going to be quite key, because always, we are used to think that, sharing of data is giving up your competitive advantage. But if you really look at any of the new models, Amazon is a classic case where they provide the platform to the third party, which really enable them to grow themselves. So this is going to be quite critical. It's going to take some time because already with some of the malls we are collaborating. We are sharing the customer data with them, which means it also goes to the other brands.
Wow.
So as long as you are confident that you're doing the right things to strengthen and keep the equity of your brand, then probably you'll gain by this. But sometimes if it is used irresponsibly by the recipient of the data, then it becomes a challenge. So we have to be a bit careful. But
That is so interesting. Who becomes the data custodian? Who's the
Yeah.
person who says this is ethical, this is not ethical? Who sets those rules?
Yeah.
Right. And that's an interesting point you make, Suresh.
I think one more thing, Vishal, I think we need to keep in mind that while all of us are talking a lot about personalization and then communicating one-on-one with the customer, the fact of the matter is, as such, there is a very, very stringent privacy act which
coming
is
up soon.
Consideration, of the Parliament, probably,
Committee,
circulation for all the views. One doesn't know how it is going to happen. Post that, we need to get a lot of customer acceptance. It's not going to be one small, turns you ticket here kind of a thing. So we'll have to wait and watch on how that is going to evolve. But given those constraints, I think collecting the data, sharing the data is going to be very, very critical.
Okay. Dilip, I want to talk about people management. We only have 5 minutes left. Okay. So I want to cover the people management is a big part of this. You handle the manufacturing, the designers, the front end. If there's lots of people working with Suresh, Raghu also. I want you to talk about how difficult is it to train people at this point of time. Raghu mentioned that retail, and Suresh and I have been talking about this for many years, training the retail staff, starting from the guard to all the way to the experience in the end of at the cash counter. Been the most difficult thing in India, right? People just don't care. They treat it as a job. But in retail, it is an experience that you got to bring in, right? Is that going to be continuously difficult in retail going forward? Because the pandemic has brought in salaries down, employment down, right? Do you see that now retail now struggling with this, or is it the role of the founders, the CEOs to spend more time in this, and will we succeed at least in this decade?
All right. Let's split into two. One is
please.
The back end where we manufacture our work. I have more than 2,000 people there.
Correct.
And there, I think the training has been key. High Design has probably the most experienced force in the world. We have more than, average person has been there 20 years, more than 20 years. So I think that there I have not had a problem. Every person is extremely skilled and trained now. I think the front end, you have a completely different story because of the change of people, the constant change of people. But also is, the freshness of a new person coming in is also very exciting. I mean, it's not that, I really want somebody to be sitting there for 5, 6, 7, 8 years in my store. Then it gets really boring. So the freshness is also key. So I think a lot of it has to do with, you leave them be fresh. How do they talk? A lot of them are very good at it. I mean, they come in and they just need to learn about your product. So you need to give them a lot of product training. And if you've recruited a person who knows how to smile and has the blah, 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 blah ability, you've solved 80% of the problem. The other 20% is your product training. And be aware of the fact that the VM's job is not only the window, but also what you say in a store. I mean, the QRs. Now, more and more we're putting information on QRs. You just use your thing to get information. So the basics need to be there regardless of who your person is. Then the recruitment has to be key. I mean, putting somebody in retail who looks like, I mean,
not a good deal.
And then here's your problem. So you need to make sure and be aware of the fact that they're going to change every year and a half. And on the other hand, be thankful that changes every year and a half so you don't get bored with them.
And retail is going to be the biggest employer, no, Raghu? Going forward?
Yes, will be. In our case, for example, we were lucky we hadn't started our major recruitment for the center when the pandemic hit. So to that extent, we're lucky. But I think, we're slowly building the team now. The biggest issue is how do you bring in the right culture into the organization? How do I make sure the housekeeping lady or the somebody at the concierge desk or an electrician actually has the same values and culture, which has to flow down from top to bottom, bottom to top, whatever. But it's the same set of values that bind people together. And I think that's our biggest challenge. That's our biggest challenge, because the surprising thing about this retail real estate industry is lack of talent. it's difficult to find 10 good people. You know, it's surprising. I mean, there are any number of people looking for jobs, but to find 10 people who will fit in, blend with your culture, learn, absorb, you know, give off each other, that's a challenge. So we're working towards that. But for me, the whole thing is, can I build a solid value system and see that the value system prevails right through the organization?
Okay, great answer. Suresh, you can touch upon that. And my last question to all of you is, will retail expansion happen in the same way as it did between 2005 and 20?
Yeah, on the question of training, I think one thing I would say the positive impact of COVID actually is that, I mean, for example, this meeting is a good example. I don't think I would have been all with
I would have come all the way to Trinity to just see you.
So I think the teams are over trained now because a lot of people have got a lot of time in their hands. Specifically the operations people. So the answer is keep training people.
Right.
But I think more important is, I think once the situation becomes normal, you don't have to really land up in a store to, in fact, do motivate the people or train the people. I think people are now versed to engaging with people through the video calls and all that. So I think that way it's a positive effect where we can improve our quality of training, the frequency with which we are interacting with our teams, keeping them charged. Post COVID, then how effectively we were able to do earlier, where we have to just land up in the store. That used to be a habit. It's not that all these tools came in the last 3 months, but that used to be it's a force of habit. I think from that point of view, I think I would say it's positive, whether it is checking the visual merchandising, doing a spot check. All those things are now possible without too much of travel. So that I think is positive. I think the bigger challenge I would say is. Fact of the matter is there are salary cuts, and in normal times you one of the good things, I mean, you over communicate with people, and this is a very peculiar situation where you can't over communicate because you don't know what to tell them.
You don't know what's next.
What you tell today, you may not be able to stand by that tomorrow. So that's a bigger challenge, I would say. How do you communicate and without any commitment?
Absolutely.
The fact of the matter is that's the bigger challenge. So somehow I think the worst is behind us from all aspects. So going forward, I think things should only be better, and I think interacting with because now the follow-ups are, I would say, much more rigorous and much more effective than before.
Okay, and what about expansion?
Expansion, I think we will see if. Someone had asked a question. I'm not talking about last 2 years. Even last 2 years, I think we have scaled down our expansion quite a bit. But 3 years back, I would have said that we had 150 stores, 200 stores every year and all that. Definitely, I don't think I'll be able to say any statement, make any statement like that. We had to be extremely careful. And to some extent, online actually can guide us also based on the data. Suppose we find some market where we don't have our store and we are getting good demand. As Dilip said that putting a store there will build the brand even better, and then get better demand, and some very good centers come. For example, if Bhartiya Center is going to be one of the iconic centers in Bangalore, we may look at opening a store. But going forward for us, I think it's going to be largely small town expansion, more rationalization of stores in large towns.
Nice, great. Dilip, what about you?
About expansion, is that the first question you have?
Yeah, that's expansion, yes.
I think, see, we're as an entrepreneur, as a founder of a brand, we are eternal optimists. We're stupid, we're quite dumb about that. So obviously we believe in it. But where is the question? I think it's changing. We're going to close a lot of stores. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised 15% of my stores end up being closed or take a while to open up. We're opening a different type of store. We're opening larger experience stores where we're going to have customizations, individual, talking to people, design students sitting there and talking to them. And so we're building on that side. We're looking at that side of expansion more. This is something that I've been dreaming about for years, and now has become clearer and clearer in my head. Whether the numbers will start increasing suddenly, obviously not.
No.
I think it'll be middle of next year by the time we're back to, ground zero. After that, happy selling, and, we can look forward to growing again.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Raghu, I'm sure that Bhartiya City will be happy to host all these brands, and hopefully all consumers start coming out, right? Your thoughts on expansion?
It's like retail. If retail has to grow, and retail should grow, then we will grow. It's a simple thing. In this country, how else do you expand? Of course, you have e-commerce, you have omnichannel, you have all of that. But I think it's just like retail to me. If you're in the right place at the right time with the right product, you will do well. It doesn't matter whether 2 other centers come around you or don't come around you. Okay? As long as you're relevant, you have every reason to exist. If not, you have no reason to exist. So I think it's calibrated, very sensible, very thought through expansion. I see a lot of expansion happening in shopping centers, not necessarily the way it's happening today, but I think the spread will be much more. And like both Suresh and Dilip were saying, I think we will probably go to smaller towns and cities because that's where real consumption is happening. Okay, because the bigger cities are getting saturated slowly. There are micro markets, for example, where we are in North Bangalore. I think we are underserved in retail, so we're quite fortunate. But not many markets exist in every city like that. So I think yes, we definitely have plans to expand, but very sensibly and very thought through.
On that note, right, I have to end this conversation. It's been amazing, but there's a question that my team wants you guys to ask, and that is about startups. Would you guys be happy with startups contacting you, working with you after they see this show? Dilip, you want to start?
Obvious answer. Love it.
Okay. What type of work would you like from them? Design work or mostly technology?
Creative work of across the whole gamut of relationships. I think where we need the greatest help, support, and where we love it most is creativity. Whether it's technically, I'm making a range of bags, for example, which I call technical bags. And I'm trying to figure out how can I make it technically advanced. For example, I'm working with NID startup right there.
Basically sensors and bags. That's amazing.
Well, but in anything, digital, social media, store design,
nice.
I think startups bring a lot of, they bring energy, they bring creativity, and they give you a reason to survive.
Suresh, and your thoughts on startups, please?
No. I think they're most welcome. In fact, we used to have, something called Fugitile every year, where people apply to us, what are the various ways they can add value to us. Then actually we pick up 10 of them and then make them put up a stall, and then make all the employees to go around and then pick up whatever they can pick up, and then we engage with them. That used to be the way we used to operate. But right now, actually, I was telling you earlier as well, probably we are working with 15 to 20 startups
as vendors. That's well said.
Yeah.
But you'd want them in a particular category now, more so because you're talking about collaboration between a mall and brand data. Do you want somebody who can wrap around security and all that?
For example, see that today the technology and digital it's all pervasive. We want to talk about e-commerce. For example, we work with a startup on security as well, where we used to have 24. We used to be across 12 floors, and we used to have 24 guards. We are now down to 3 guards because it's a technology-driven security system, which drives the security in our offices, and which we are now transferred the technology to the stores as well.
Okay, that's interesting. So startups can contact you. I'll put in their emails, guys. You can contact them. And Raghu, your thoughts on startups, and I'll call this a close. Okay, 2 types of startups I'd be happy to connect to. One is on the whole digital side, on the customer experience side. Okay, so again, I give you quickly a very small example. When we do a promotion in a center, we don't know how the promotion works. Do more people go left? Do they go right? Do they go into a store? Why do they avoid a store? That kind of analysis is what I would love to give to retailers
as information.
Absolutely.
So anything with that, anything which enhances customer experience overall, digital social media, that's one type. The other type is non-tech. I don't know if you guys are working with any non-tech. If there's anybody in the lifestyle, fashion, accessories, tech business in selling products, we're actually thinking of doing pop-up stores for these people where they can come in and sell product, because these guys may not have money to invest. But, I'd earlier alluded to this bringing in all these online guys. If there are people who can complement those guys, we're happy to talk to them as well.
Absolutely, Raghu. We'll connect online, or offline, pardon me. So busy with the online world. Offline, because, I'm going to give you a set of people who are doing this. In fact, there's a secret D2C committee or a brand or a set of brands, about 1,000 entrepreneurs who are doing this. I'll get them in touch with all of you. They have your digital guys, they have your brand guys too. I'll put you in touch for sure. So everybody watching this, thank you. So here you have men who are startup friendly. Second thing, go safe, go to a mall. Don't think about the COVID outside. Just go in, enjoy with your families, go to Bhartiya City, go shop a high design, go buy US Polo and all the other brands, Nautica and others. I'm going to be there for sure with you guys, okay? Take care. Bye, everyone. Thanks, Dilip. Thanks, Suresh. Raghu, bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.